When was the last Highland charge? Which clan was involved? Who were they up against? And how did it relate to the death of Jacobite hopes at Culloden? That's what I'm talking about today. So if you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right of the screen and ring the notification bell to be told when I upload new videos. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. Today, this is beautiful parkland. It doesn't feel like a battlefield. The thought of a mass of Highlanders charging, swords drawn, is ridiculous. It would fairly shake the tourists and locals alike. And yet, that's what you would have seen if you'd been here in September 1759. Now, you'll know from that date that Culloden had come and gone. And in that bitter defeat, the 300 men of Clan Fraser had breached the front line of red-coated soldiers only to be viciously repulsed by the second line defence. They hadn't been led by their elderly clan chief, nor by his son. And if you're thinking, they were led by Jamie Fraser, shut it! They were led by Charles Fraser of Inveralachie. It was as they retreated in haste towards Inverness that they met young Simon Fraser, their chieftain's son. He was on his way to the battle. They advised him to turn back. He spent several weeks on the run. Then a surrender to the crown and a period of imprisonment in Edinburgh Castle before being pardoned in 1750. His was a better fate than his father, the clan chief and 11th Lord Lovat. Also named Simon, he was known as the Fox. He met his death on the gallows in London as punishment for calling out the clan in support of Bonnie Prince Charlie. In fact, he was the last man to be executed by beheading in Britain, although not the last person beheaded. If that seems strange, then come back and click the link top right for a video that I made on the subject. Now, the aide-de-camp to the British cavalry commander at Culloden was a young officer called James Wolfe. There's a story that he refused orders to execute wounded clansmen after the battle. However conflicted he was, and whether or not that tale's true, he was definitely a leader in the post-Culloden suppression of the Highlands. 14 years later, Wolfe and the Fraser Highlanders found themselves here, sharing the battlefield once again. This time, they were on the same side. You see, as part of his rehabilitation, young Simon Fraser, who'd hid in the hills after Culloden, raised a regiment from his forfeited clan lands. This time, over 1,000 men to fight for the British Army in the North American 7 Years' War, what Americans will call the French and Indian War. This regiment became known as the 78th Fraser Highlanders. They would have looked like this. They carried broadswords as well as muskets. They wore Highland dress and clan symbols in their bonnets. Many, if not most, would be Jacobite at heart. Some would have been in that charge at Culloden 14 years earlier. But that was a flame that had all but been smothered. Although the 1745 was still clearly in James Wolfe's mind. Before this battle, he complimented the toughness and martial prowess of his Highland troops, adding, "What's more, it's no great mischief if they fall." Quite the leader of men. The Fraser Highlanders were integral to the defeat of the French here in North America. Ironically, a war that probably would never have happened if the Jacobite cause had succeeded. Now, if you doubt that, then check out the thoughts of my expert historian Murray Pittock and my interview with him and Chris Watley in my video, What if the Jacobites had won at Culloden? But the 78th Frasers found themselves here on the Plains of Abraham outside Quebec City. Now, here's an interesting factoid. Plains of Abraham was named after one of the first settlers from France, Abraham Martin, who was awarded 32 acres in 1635 with his French wife, Marguerite Langlois. Now, I say French wife because he was referred to as Abraham Martin dit l'Écossais. Abraham Martin, the Scotsman. The last Highland charge would be by Fraser Highlanders on a continent an ocean away from home, but on land owned by a Scotsman. Now, recently you may have heard me advertising my 60th birthday tour in September. I've been saying that the tour will end with a ceilidh for my 60th birthday in Gilly-Doo, Edinburgh. Now, here's an opportunity for a small number of folks who aren't coming to the tour to join us at the ceilidh for your dinner, drinks and a cracking ceilidh band. If you fancy one of the small number of tickets available to share the night with the tour group, me and my family, then email alexis@scotlandhistorytours.co.uk. Now, I don't for a minute claim to be an expert in this campaign. In fact, anyone who thinks I'm an expert in anything needs to take a look at themselves. But I'm indebted to local man Ewan Booth, married to a Franco-Scot descended from a Fraser Highlander. He showed me around and he tells me that he'll be starting his own YouTube channel about the history of Scots Quebecois, so look out for that. Anyway, General Wolfe and the British were on the other side of the St Lawrence River over there. He was confident that his British regulars could beat the French mix of regulars, militia, Canadian woodsmen and natives. He tried to draw the French out into open battle, but they weren't that stupid. Something dramatic had to be done. Wolfe looked for ways to make an amphibious landing on this northern shore. But whilst there were places much further up the river to do that, it would give the French too much time to prepare. Indeed, as the British spent several days going up and down the river on landing craft, the French sent around 3,000 regular troops, militia and cavalry upstream. Then, overnight, on the 12th of September, General Wolfe had a barge drift downriver so that his men could disembark at the bottom of a 53-metre cliff with a gun battery on top. Nobody would be expecting this madness. A small unit clambered up the cliffs and overcame a small force of defenders at the top so that the main force could climb the steep slope up to the plain. Between 3 and 8 in the morning, the British troops formed up in battle lines. The main body of French now had to come out of the city and march west, while those that had been sent upriver, they had to make their way back. The French sent some auxiliary Canadians, sharpshooters and natives to hide over that way to the north. In a book of letters from Robert Macpherson, the minister attached to the 78th Highlanders, he tells us that as the French approached the British lines from the town, both made a stop, looking on another for 2 to 3 minutes, the one desirous that the other should give the first fire. At last, the enemy began and made 2 most furious discharges, when ours were ordered to fire, which they did to such purpose that the body of the enemy were put in great confusion by the slaughter made amongst them. This was when Brigadier James Murray gave the order for the Frasers to charge. In fact, just over there, where the charge started, is still called Rue Fraser. Our correspondent continues, the Highlanders rushed on, sword in hand, and soon other regiments with screwed bayonets followed. In a moment, the rout was general. Your countrymen, led by Brigadier Murray, were interspersed among the thick of them, cutting and slashing everywhere about them. They pursued them to the very sally port of the town, and might have entered, He tells us that the reason that they didn't enter the city was the host of Canadians and Indians that I told you about, hidden on their flank in that direction. The Highlanders had to regroup and attack that body. We're told, we suffered great loss, both in officers and men, but at last drove them under cover of their cannon, which likewise did us considerable harm. The Fraser Highlanders suffered the heaviest casualties of the day. A bitter man might say, it was no great mischief that General Wolfe himself also fell that day. Now, on our side of the Atlantic, if we don't know much about the 7 Years' War in North America, the one thing that we have heard of is this battle on the Plains of Abraham. It was a victory for the British. Hurrah! Most of the French retreated, leaving a small garrison in the town of Quebec that was easily besieged and surrendered as autumn turned to winter. But the war wasn't over. When the ice retreated in spring, the French would be back. And maybe, inspired by Joan of Arc, the roles would be reversed. On our side of the Atlantic, winter off the French coast arrives later. I've also said before that the Jacobite conflict that we obsess about over in Scotland was just one small cog in the bigger wheel of machinations between Britain, France and their prospective allies. For the French, Jacobites marching south to Derby had been a welcome distraction, luring British troops from mainland Europe back to Britain to protect their rear. I've also explained elsewhere in my video, Culloden wasn't the last Jacobite hurrah, that Culloden wasn't the last Jacobite hurrah. I suggested that the last Jacobite hurrah was at Quiberon Bay off the coast of France. Now, I did a whole video about that, so I'm not going to cover all the details here, but you can come back and click the link top right to watch that video in full. The point is that as battle was raging here on the Plains of Abraham in Europe, the British were blockading French ports. The French were massing a force on the Brittany coast and planned a breakout so that they could land an invasion force in the British Isles, place James Stewart on the British throne and end the war in Europe. It would also allow French supply ships to get out of port, cross the Atlantic and resupply their troops here in North America. The battle here on the Abraham Plains was September 1759. Back home, the final battle at Quiberon Bay was November. With the thaw of a Canadian spring, April saw the French approach Quebec City from Montreal in the west. They met at the Battle of Ste Foy, about 2.5 miles in that direction. In this battle outside Quebec City, roles were reversed. It was the French who won, with over 1,000 British casualties. Maybe that's the reason the one that on before is what we focus on. Now it was the French turn to besiege the British in Quebec. Now, the British did have some advantages. They had time to rebuild the walls over the winter. But more importantly, the French struggled with the siege because they were low on munitions and supplies that they'd hoped for from France. Munitions and supplies that should have arrived, but for the failure to break the blockade at the Battle of Quiberon Bay in November. That meant they never came. It turns out that the last Jacobite hurrah was also the last French bravo in North America. Here, outside 18th century Quebec City, was where French hopes really came to an end. Not at the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, but the following spring. The French and the Stuart Jacobite cause were intertwined and they fell together. Here in this beautiful park, east into the city, is where the last Highland charge took place, by a regiment of officers and men who in sympathy were probably Jacobite, whose allies 14 years earlier had been the French. A regiment raised by the son of the last man executed by beheading in Britain for his role in the 1745 uprising. His clansmen now subsumed into the British Army, led by the British officer who was their scourge after Culloden and saw no mischief if they fell. There may have seemed no way back at Culloden, but the Jacobite cause truly came to an end with the last Highland charge here on the Plains of Abraham in what we call French Canada. That video about the Jacobite last hurrah at Quiberon Bay is proper interesting. You should watch it. Just click the link coming up on screen now. Support the channel by clicking top right to become a Patreon member, or buy me a coffee in the description below. Ha mi an dóchas gwn bí lam alai. Shéri an drasta.